What about for like the rest of us? So people who are listening who don't have kids, who have loved to go through this, but maybe feel like they've hit their levels. They can't get further. This sounds great for these malleable brains, but for them, it's not possible. Are they just out of luck? Like, can you learn how to change your brain and become a top 1%er past high school?
Yes, you can. It's not the market we're focused on, but all these learning science concepts, there are some elements at age, but fundamentally, you can apply them for your entire life. And, K through 12 and take higher ed. If you take higher ed and down, the education market is a global $7 trillion market. And so we're focused on the K through 12 for now. But there's a huge opportunity in education to take all these same concepts for adults. Right?
What's the TAM of the larger side?
I mean, near infinite in this world. Here's the issue you have right? When you look at the world today, right, AI is going to change everything. There's going to be massive reskilling that needs to occur, right? And we're focused on, okay, how do we prepare the world for from kindergarten up, right? And then, but there's a whole nother set of, okay, all these jobs are going to be obsoleted, right? And how are we going to retrain all those adults? And I believe that's a huge market and that somebody needs to go in there. And I believe entrepreneurs need to go in. We can't just count on the old educational system that we all been doing for 100 years. We need new entrepreneurs to go in and take these concepts and say, how are we going to reskill all the people who need it?
You're on obviously the very cutting edge of AI, and you have been forever. From, I don't know if you would have called, some of what you were doing back at Trilogy and ESW. Did you call it? Did you say you were AI focused?
Well, it technically was AI. So my AI world was in high school. I wrote a paper on AI, and one of the segments back then, this is in the 80s. This is in the 80s. So this would have been like 1985. Was neural nets was a new area, and I was like, they're decades away. Yeah. Back then, what AI was like expert systems and ontologies. And so I went to Stanford, and I was literally in class with Professor Feigenbaum, who's the father of expert systems, which was AI. Now, the problem was AI was in its downturn phase. It had boomed sort of early 80s. There was a bunch of failed AI companies, so you could never call it AI. So when we started our company, when I dropped out of Stanford and started the company, we didn't call it AI at all because of the negative connotations, but it was the first AI product to sell $1 billion. And so that was sort of our claim to fame in the 90s of what built Trilogy, the software company, was AI. We just didn't call it that because we didn't want the connotations.
That's fascinating. And now obviously the company's huge and you've bought all these companies and, you're sort of a behemoth in tech. But God, I was reading some old stories on you, and I'm sure sometimes it's even hard to like reimagine, but I loved this one line about how like by the fall of 1991, you guys are like, at this point, I think still in your garage, sort of like five guys, no money, and you'd been 3 months away from product for 2 years. And, you did the thing of working 20-hour days and sleeping under your desks. But the part that's interesting is how people were talking about how your former classmates, they were going to work for Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and how some of the other friends of yours began kind of telling you, like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're a smart guy. You dropped out of Stanford. You're going to build this thing. You've been 3 months away for 2 years. This is going to fail. Stop being even maybe what your dad said to you when you graduated Stanford. Was that Gregory was your dad?
It was my dad when I dropped out. I didn't graduate, so yes.
Yeah. And did he call you a moron for dropping out of Stanford?
It was a big title in the magazine, like Forbes, I think. They're like, the title was "You're a moron" because that was his quote.
Does that still feel weird, or does it not register for you anymore?
Well, no, but back to that is, I believe, and we were talking about the MBAs before. Here's my difference of an MBA and an entrepreneur, right? Entrepreneurs believe they're going to change the world no matter what everybody else thinks, right? That they just sit there. And I remember back to one of the, we were building this engine, this, configuration engine, and we're in it, and we were just like, we're totally going to do it. And of course we know how to do it, and we'll get there. It just needs some more time every 3 months, right? We kept doing that. And I remember the parent of one of the founders, right, of the co-founders, just like and he had dropped out. And so the parents like mad at me because the kid's dropping out and doing this futile task. And it was all dumb and stupid. And my dad's calling me a moron, all those kind of things. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Bell Labs had 100 PhDs working on this. and they fail. I mean, isn't that awesome? To me, I was like, because we're going to solve it. And nobody else has been able to figure this out.
This is not awesome.
And literally, they're like, that literally is an example that convinces me you're never going to succeed, right? And it's that blind belief that you are right? And that is what entrepreneurs do. Back to the MBA, I used to give talks at Harvard Business School and stuff back in the 90s. And I would just sit there and say, here's your problem as an MBA. You're going to look at the spreadsheet and you're going to say that cell doesn't work. So the spreadsheet doesn't foot, right? It doesn't work. So I'm not going to do this idea, right? Because you're just looking at it and analyzing it. I'm like, an entrepreneur looks at that cell and says, I will change that cell. I will make that work. Right. And that's sort of the difference between the two. If you're going to be a builder and an entrepreneur, you're going to go change reality. Like when we started back, 3 years ago when I became principal, I'm like, I have to build an engine that teaches kids 10 times faster. Right? And I'm like, no, we got the learning science, this Gen AI, it's totally going to be doable. Right. And yes, you can do that. But if you analyzed it, it wasn't obvious. I think today people still don't really believe it. But that is what you do. You go out there and you say, I'm going to go build a school that people love, that all those crazy things that you read about, entrepreneurs go make that a reality. And that's what's awesome. And I believe just, are they made or formed? We believe in our high school that you can teach kids this skill. And if they're following their passion, they all have ideas where they think they can, put a dent in the universe. And we just need to help them do that and give them the skills to do that.
How do you think your brain worked that way? Why was your neural network wired to the fact that you looked at something almost impossible and thought, yeah, we're going to do that?
I think humans naturally are like that. And I believe the standard school system sort of beats that out of them. If you talk, so starting in middle school, a lot of people come into our schools, right? We had a few hundred people join. We have schools now all over the country, and they joined, in the last 10 weeks ago when school started, and they come into middle school and they're consumers, what we call consumers, right? They scroll TikTok, they play Fortnite all day, right? They've been caught in that dopamine, evil screen time hook. And we run everybody through an exercise where we say, what are your values, right? Go do a values exercise. Do a Japanese ikigai, if you know what those are.
Sure.
What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need, right? What do you get paid for? And do a vision board, if you think as a way to think about it. These kids' vision board is not, I want to scroll TikTok all day or be a consumer. Mm-hmm. They want to go change the world. They believe they can, right? They want to. They just don't have the skills. And then after they create all this vision board of who they want to be, it's always awesome. Kids want to be awesome. They want to do great things. And then we make them do a 168-hour project where they track every hour of the week. Mm. And you are what you do. That's when they have this realization, this middle school girl comes up and she's like, I guess I'm going to be the world's best TikTok scroller. Right. But the disappointment in her voice when she was like, I just did my vision board of who I want to be. And I realize, right, I've been caught in this consumer mindset and I'm trapped. And that is what our job in middle and high school is, to teach kids the skills to go be a builder, to go be a creator, because they all want to do that. It's not that this generation, right, it's like, oh, there's no ambition. They don't want to. They want to. Our school system just doesn't give them the skills to make that transition.
So have you found that you can take your brain back from being hijacked by this attention economy we're in?
100%. So another example, this was probably a month ago, where a student came up to me where this was one of somebody who worked super hard. This is the other part about hard work. 10 weeks, he came up to me, he's like, 10 weeks ago, if you had said, sign a contract, I'll pay you $100 an hour for the rest of your life and you will just play video games. That's it until you die. He's like, I would have sold my soul and signed that contract. Right. That was it. He was caught and he was sort of happy. It's like literally he was signing up to live in the Matrix. Right. And he was totally willing to do it. And he's like, today, and he was presenting to the other high school kids at Alpha. And he's like, today, I don't even have time to play video games. Right. Because he is building. Right. And so you absolutely, all these kids, but what they need to work on, if you put them in school for 6 hours a day in homework, you've made an environment where they're like, okay, my escape is to scroll TikTok and play video games because I'm not building, I'm not engaged, I'm not doing hard things. Like the third thing that I need parents to really believe, that a lot of parents don't believe, you got to love school, right? You got to learn, crush academics in 2 hours a day. The third is the key to your child's happiness is high standards. And high standards are when they engage, they want to engage in hard things. They want to go build an app that's 100 million kids are going to use. That's going to, right? They want to go build that. And that's hard. And they know it's hard, right? But they will, right? And that's why they'll come in and put the effort in, right? If you think about athletics, I don't know if you have an athletic background, but the athletic ethos in America, we actually believe all these things. We just don't believe when you apply to academics, we think it the opposite. So Westlake, right? Parents in Austin are like, I want my kid on the Westlake football team because they're going to be state champions. It's going to be the hardest thing my son ever does, right? They're going to work. They do go in the summer for practice, right? They're in the weight room at night, right? They are doing the hardest thing they've ever done to be on the Westlake football team, right? But they'll remember it the rest of their life. But if you said that same thing, right, and said that's academics, right, or what the school day should be like, they're like, no, definitely not. I'm not going to have my kid do that. It's only in after-school athletics where we believe that.
It's so good. I mean, I hope you guys expand past even high schoolers at some point. To your point that somebody listening right now hears this, and somebody who has built billion-dollar businesses is getting so fired up about changing people's mentality in education. And what I'll say is like, it's the same thing I see with a lot of employees in our companies. There's actually some sort of disease or virus where we want to get by. We kind of want to get by. We do have the vision board maybe of a really cool life, but this idea of hard things as the key to loving life is something that we subscribe to. Here, our first line at Contrarian Thinking's Creed is those who say it's impossible should get out of the way of those of us who are doing it. And so we believe that deeply, but people don't last here very long if they don't believe that. And I kind of proactively will say to the team, if you ever say we can't do that, or that's not my job, you're fired. And you're welcome too, because hopefully it snaps you out of it and you go somewhere else. Do you find this brought, not even in the kids, but in the talent, in the guides that you're hiring, in the employees in your companies? Am I jaded in that I'm saying there does appear to be, there's these two worlds. One world where there's builders in Austin, like our mutual friend Brendan and, Dino, who I think you know from Saronic too, and they're just animals. And there's this one, and then there's this other side where there's so many people that I just want to shake them and be like, you have so much potential. What the fuck's going on? You're in your own way.
That world I completely agree with, but we believe every kid, right, can be a creator. The issue is they haven't found what their passion is. So when they come here and they're not engaged, it's because this isn't the hook, right? We talk about every kid has a passion for learning. It's just not always academics. So back to my story of my dad, I was a shirker in school. I was the slacker who I wasn't trying to do impossible things, right? I'm the one who was disengaged all the way through school, right? And then I drop out. My dad's like, you're a moron. But then there's a follow-on to that, which is 18 months later, he sits down with me and he's like, I'm so glad you dropped out, right? I'm so glad you dropped out because we'd been working 100-hour weeks, living under the desk, right? And he's like, you have found what you love. And he's like, before this, I was worried that you were a lazy little shit, right? And a parent's terrified of having that, right? And that's in school, that's what I was, right? But then once I found what I wanted, right? And you just take off. And we look at every student that we have. That's our job, is to find what is it that lights them up, right? And that's what why you have to say is kids must love school more than vacation, because you found it. Anything else, it's a parent pushing their values on the kid, not what the kid wants to do. And so instead, you're like, oh, you want to build video games? We're going to let you build video games. You want to write sports? So we are starting, right, a sports academy where if you love sports, right, you get to start sports in the afternoon, right? And you still have to do the rigor of the academics in the morning and the 2 hours, right? But those kids are going to be the best academic performing athletes in this country. But they're also going to engage in be a D1 bound middle schooler or a D1 aspirational middle schooler. And it's always tying things in to what the kids' passions are that unlock it. Like one of our life skills that we teach in the afternoon, teamwork and leadership, entrepreneurship and financial literacy, socialization and relationship building, storytelling, public speaking, and grit and hard work, right? Those are the things when we say, in the AI world, those are the life skills that kids really need.